way. If we're sitting at, what I want to think about is which hind leg, in this case, in the leg yield, is stepping deeper under the horse's body. Well, that'd be the inside hind leg, right? If I end up sitting into that inside seat bone, I'm going to be blocking that hind leg because I'm going to be blocking his ability to lift his rib cage, right? So I don't want to be sitting into that inside seat bone and pushing my horse sideways, because it's going to drop the balance when we do that, and it's going to impede his ability to really step under in the way that we're looking for, that can build power. What I also don't want to be doing is sitting too heavy in the outside seat bone, because then I'm going to be blocking the movement from the body on that side. So when we talk about our aids, I want to talk about your intention more than your seat bones. If I'm thinking I'm coming forward and a leg yield left, I don't want to be over here to go over there, right? I want to think, guide my seat into the direction that I want to go, all right? May there be slightly more weight to one seat bone or another as we go into our lateral work? Yes, potentially, but I think of that as being more an effect of what we're doing, right, than the cause of the lateral. If I shift my seat and my horse follows underneath me,
can you move back slightly so that they can see your seat more, or we can tilt the camera?
Oh, I don't know if I can maybe even. Oh, nope, can't lift this up. They want to see my seat more. I'll see if I can stand in the chair here. I'm going to hover. It's good for my jumping position, right? So yeah, I'll try to do this without tipping my chair and dying. So I'm going to be leg yielding toward the left. So my intention through my body is going to be coming to the left. This is kind of exaggerating even here, but I'm thinking coming to the left as I go. Okay, I hope that's more helpful for everybody seeing what we're doing there. Again, inside leg hanging underneath us, outside leg hanging slightly back. Intention carrying us, in this case, to the left. Not thinking, put more weight in this seat bone or put more weight in that seat bone. Because if we do that, think about what the horse feels. If I'm guiding my seat across to the left in this case, if my horse follows perfectly with me, okay, here I am and here's my horse. If my horse follows perfectly with me, what change is he going to feel in my seat? He should feel like we're right there in unison, right? If my horse doesn't go, there's going to be a difference in the feel. And that's when maybe my whip or leg or whatever we're using can say, oops, there goes the light. That's where that can say, hey, step up underneath me a little bit more, or remember this is what needs to happen, and that can help encourage him to come underneath us better. So when we talk about deviating, we can only deviate to the degree that the horse can follow. Okay, that's going to be really important for us. Again, that's going to keep us from tipping and dropping and all of those things. Okay, what's happening with our reins? Our outside rein, think about what happens in these feet. That outside shoulder does what? Stabilizes. The inside shoulder does what? It leads. Okay, if I'm leg yielding out to the left, what we see a lot of times from riders that are struggling to get it to happen is they kind of open outward, right, with that outside rein. In our foundation program, some of our foundation programs, we see that exaggerated sit-in, open-out kind of an idea. When that happens, when we do that with our rein, we're actually pulling the horse in that direction from their shoulder, causing that to be a leading shoulder. Okay, so our outside rein, to support the stability of that outside shoulder, outside front leg, is our outside rein should stay connected right underneath us. Okay, or not underneath us, but right in front of us, at the horse's shoulder. Okay, our inside rein, it's not that we're going to be opening in a big way, but our inside rein needs to kind of have that feel that it's allowing. It's opening slightly. There's times riders in clinics have heard me say often, hand me your inside rein, kind of opening that way. That's going to give freedom for that inside shoulder to confidently reach. If we take, and we see this happen all the time, if we take that inside rein and we draw it into the withers, we push it into the shoulder, it's going to oftentimes cause an increase of inside flexion, which is going to cause that shoulder to be more heavy. At the very least, it's going to block that shoulder, which is then going to cause it to become a weight a balancing shoulder, which again is not its job, right? Its job is to be leading. It almost feels completely backwards because it feels as though you're blocking the horse from going that way. You're not going to have the kind of contact that blocks the horse. What we're doing is, in this case, helping our horse to discriminate between the seat aids and the rein aids, right? Where the seat says, hey, let's go here, and the reins say, I'll stabilize you to maintain your bend, okay? I hope that that's making sense. We're working on fixing our lighting over here. Our lamp fell, and there we got some better light back. We've got like a odd ball of light here, but I'll just not draw there if I can help it. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. So again, going through the review here of the leg yield and then the aids for the leg yield. The purpose of the leg yield is suppleness. It's going to help with balance. Okay. When we're asking this from our horse, inside to outside, so we'd say that the horse in this case is moving away from the bend. Okay. His bend is going right, he's moving left, so he's moving away from the bend. All right. Our aids, your inside leg's hanging underneath you, your outside leg is slightly back, your outside rein against the withers, your inside rein slightly open, and your intention is forward and sideways at the angle that you want your leg yield to be at. This is where having a destination is a really important thing to think about. If you're just starting leg yield with your horse, well, you're going to be lucky to go, very far in any direction anyway. But you want to still be thinking, at what angle do I want to go? If your horse is more confident with it, I want to be more thinking, where do I want to land? Where's my destination in the leg yield? Okay, where do I want it to end? When we talk about our lateral movements, we want to always feel that there's a beginning, there's a flow, and there's an end of the movement. So if we're asking for our leg, any of our lateral movements, I want to feel, when do I want to start? Can we flow there without interruption of the movement, of the cadence, of the balance? And when we get to where we're going, can we stop that and go forward or change or whatever, right? So there's a start, a flow, and a finish of all of our lateral movements. So that's our leg yield. And we had questions pop up in the leg yield here. And sorry if I seemed distracted while I was watching them adjust the light. Thank you guys for doing that.
Teaching a young horse to leg yield, is it best to teach them from the ground first?
Is it best to teach a young horse to leg yield from the ground first? I think all of the lateral work is easiest taught first from the ground. Okay, and this is something in our video, the video module that I'm going to make available as soon as this lecture is over. We're going to show you leg yielding with Tyler's horse from the ground, as well as I coach her from the saddle and I show you from Nico, my Frisian. So we've got lots of different setups there that you can see how we would ask for and then even how we would initiate the leg yield in there. But my thought is that all of the lateral work is easiest to teach from the ground first. David and I were talking about this yesterday. I think about this as being like calisthenics before going to the gym. We learn how to do a push-up before we learn how to do a bench press. We can help the horse understand how to use their body in the way that we want them to for this, whether it's for unlocking or for engaging or for whatever, any of the lateral movements, before they have to carry the weight of the rider. So it's less cumbersome, I think, for them that way. Do you have to start from the ground? No, absolutely not. We've got lots of riders that are absolutely capable of helping that horse to learn it first from the ground, from their back, and they can all learn it first from their back. My preference, just based on my experiences, I like to teach them first from the ground, and then I feel like most of the time they already understand it when you get to their back. Neither one's better or worse. That's just personal preference.
Aside from disengagement, is it safe to ask for lateral work in a young 4-year-old horse?
Yes. Yeah, aside from disengagement, aside from over-engagement also, and it's how long are you going to be asking for it. Leg yield? Oh, I would do a ton of leg. I'd like to do a lot of leg yield anyway, but I don't think that there's an age limit necessarily on leg yield. Leg yield is a movement that I start on the first ride on a young horse, because if you're going to work a gait, if you're going to, for me, if you're going to pick your coffee up off the fence, if you're going to, whatever, anything like that you're going to do, there's likely going to be leg yield incorporated into that. Always, with all of our lateral work, be mindful of how much, how fast, how hard, how soon, right? If we're doing anything in excess, obviously it's not good for any horse, but I don't think there is such a thing as too early from the physical perspective to talk about these things. It doesn't mean on our 4-year-old horse that if we haven't done a shoulder in, we initiate the shoulder in today and next week we're going, 60 meters down the rail in a shoulder in. You're certainly not going to be doing that, because that's about developing strength and that sort of thing. But I don't think there's any time that's necessarily too early to begin having the conversation. Right?
To clarify, there's no flexion on a straight leg yield?
There would be very limited bend on the straight leg yield, and it would be bend that would be in there simply because of that stepping under and that guiding out. It would be very limited. When we talk about flexion, there would be a slight, if I were to draw the nose here, if I were to draw the head, there would be a slight inside flexion. Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question.
What is unique to the leg yield that differs from all other lateral movements? She's having a hard time remembering them all, and what makes one different from another.
Absolutely. So what makes the leg yield different from the other lateral movements is that both ends of the horse are equally aiming for the sideways movement. Okay? Whereas in the other lateral work, we name the lateral movement by the part of the body that deviates from the track. Okay? So, and hopefully I'll be able to clarify this more, but just know at this point that the leg yield, both ends of the horse are equally tracking sideways as we go there.
How does the outside leg slightly back not be confused with asking for the canter?
The activity of the leg. Okay. The outside leg would be resting back, and basically I would say at all times, unless you're asking for that cow horse turn or that sort of thing. But the outside leg would always be slightly back. Whether or not that gets confused with canter would be about the activity of that leg. Okay, we're talking the leg is there. When we ask for canter, the leg becomes active in the asking process. Okay, I hope that's clear.
Would it help to carry your hands in the direction of the leg yield?
No. There. How's that for a simple answer? No, it's not helpful to carry your hands in the direction of the leg yield, because it causes a deviation of the responsibility of the front legs. If a horse is really, really sticky and they're completely not understanding, there will be maybe a one-step moment where I'll talk to that front leg, in this case the front left leg, where I'll say, pick this up and step this out here, if they're really, really just stuck in that idea. Otherwise, even from a young stage, I try not to do that deviation. So I would talk about breaking down leg yield as foundation leg yield or connecting leg yield. Okay, our foundation leg yield is those moments, and it would be moments really. It wouldn't need to be more than moments for most horses. That's how I should say that. That you would open and individualize each leg in that idea. Once they've got a baseline understanding of that, keeping the reins connected in the way that we're talking is going to be really easy for them to understand. Because ultimately what happens, if the shoulders go too much, the haunches will begin to lag behind, right? And that's where we run into balance problems and things like that. And again, the idea is that in the leg yield, the haunches and the shoulders move equally together.
Should your eye focus be straight or in the direction of travel?
I'm always going to be thinking in the direction of my travel. Thinking, focusing, I guess you could say that that's two different things. In the leg yield, I'm certainly going to be aiming for wherever I want to land. If it's on my circle, I'm going to be focusing ahead and forward to the next track that I want to be on. If I'm coming, say, straight down the center line and leg yielding out to the outside corner or something like that, I'm going to be looking for the corner. I'm going to be looking where I'm headed. Yeah.
Does the inside leg tap the horse in rhythm, or is it quiet?
That's going to depend. Does the inside leg tap the horse in rhythm, or is it quiet? I'm always thinking the seat initiates, the leg motivates, the rein validates, and the whip mediates. Okay? So, and I should have mentioned that at the beginning also, so thank you for allowing that to come up, or inspiring that to come up. So the seat initiates. The seat says, hey, let's go here, or hey, let's do this, right? The leg says, give me more. The rein says, yes, that's right, or no, not quite. And the whip says, hey, you forgot something. So if I go with my seat and my horse is resisting, I'm not going to add my leg because the leg says, give me more. And I'm not going to ask for more resistance. Why would we want that, right? If I use my seat and the horse begins to soften and follow my seat, then if I want more, then that's when the leg will touch, and it will touch in time with the thrust phase of the inside hind leg. That's the only moment where we can ask that to come through with more energy, with more reach, with more speed, with anything like that. Okay, so when the horse is following the seat, that's when I'm going to touch with my leg. Now, at the very basic beginning foundation stages, when you're still teaching your horse, hey, this leg means move over here, this leg means move over there, that's when there's a little bit of a blending of this, but I'm still trying to always think about that thrust phase of the inside hind leg, because that's the only real time the horse can understand the leg anyway. Okay, that's an important piece to remember, is the horse can only understand the aids when they're given in time with the footfall.
Do you know why some classical trainers do not teach leg yield?
Well, I've had discussions with some of them that don't teach leg yield, that say that they don't like leg yield, say that they don't use leg yield. And what I find interesting is that I often have seen that they will do something that they will call something that's a leg yield. I'm being a little cheeky with this. I don't want to upset anybody, but a lot of times when we hear somebody say, I never do leg yield, I wouldn't ask for leg yield, a lot of what they do is really a leg yield, but they might be calling it something different. So it's semantics in there for some of that. Now, there is an idea of only going straight with that horse and deviating then into the lateral movements. Can I talk to that necessarily? I can't. I can't always say what or why somebody else is doing or not doing something. I find it helpful for me to use leg yield to supple the length of the horse's spine. That's all I'm going to say there. I'm not saying that those other horses that aren't used or aren't ridden in a technical leg yield, I'm not going to say that their spines aren't supple. I'm going to say I find it really helpful for me to supple the spine and to educate the horse about my aids when I do use a leg yield.
This person says, I was taught if I was turning horse to the left, I should use my right leg pressure. Should I be using my left leg back a little?
Read that one more time.
I was taught if I was turning a horse to the left, I should use my right leg pressure. Should I be using my left leg back a little?
Should I be using my left leg back a little? If I'm turning left, okay, I'm going to be tracking left, I still want my left leg underneath me, okay? I wouldn't want to use it back. The outside leg being back slightly and using that, that's going to help encourage that horse's outside hind leg to still be that stabilizing leg. So I think that's 100% okay. I'm all about that because it's going to keep, ideally, theoretically, it's going to keep the horse's haunches from fishtailing to the outside. So I'm totally okay with that. That's something that I think maybe needs a little bit of clarity too, is we hear riders talk about the horse bending around the inside leg. That doesn't always mean that we're pushing the horse with the inside leg to create the bend. It simply means that the bend through the horse's body wraps around the inside leg, as if the inside leg were kind of a center point of reference, like a fence post or something, and the horse is bending around that. It doesn't mean the fence post is bending the horse. It just means the horse is bending around the fence post. I hope that that's helpful and not more confusing.
A couple people are asking you to repeat your clarification of what the seat, leg, rein, and whip do.
Totally, absolutely. So the seat initiates. Okay, I'm going to actually write this out for you. The seat initiates. Another way of saying it is that the seat says, let's go here or let's do this. And it does that through mild shifting. And the primary aid of the seat is going to be intention, okay? Because our job is to stay centered over top of the center of our horse's spine. If I deviate off to the outside of my horse's spine, now I've messed up the balance, and I've also blocked movement, okay? Likewise, if I deviate to the inside of the spine. So our job, I'm always trying to think of myself as being a center pole for the carousel horse, right? I don't want to be crooked, and I don't want to be too much shifted off one side or another, because that limits how the carousel horse is able to operate. So the seat initiates, the leg motivates. The leg motivates. The leg says, give me more. It can be more step, more speed, more energy, more reach, more whatever. The leg says, give me more. Okay? Seat initiates, leg motivates, the rein validates. The rein validates. If the horse bulges into the rein and the rein closes, the rein says, nah, not quite. But if the horse is moving along and the rein maintains a softness within the movement, the reins are saying, yep, that's right. Okay? So the reins say, yes, that's right, or no, not quite. The reins validate. Okay? The whip mediates. The whip mediates. In other words, the whip says, hey, you forgot something. So if I'm asking for, we'll go back to the leg yield. If I'm asking for a leg yield and the horse isn't following the seat and this inside hind leg isn't stepping deeper, because of the work that we would have initiated on the ground, the horse will know that if I touch with the whip, they need to step that hind leg under deeper, right? So if I shift with my seat and they don't follow, the whip says, hey, you forgot to follow my seat. Let's talk to that hind leg. Okay? So the seat initiates, the leg motivates, the rein validates, and the whip mediates. I hope that makes sense.
That's it for now.
That's all the questions for now? Perfect. All right, so now we're going to talk about leg yield. All right? After another sip here. I'm getting a little dry. All right. You guys are awesome. These questions are fantastic. Okay, shoulder in. It's funny, David asked me to begin with before we started the lecture, do you stand for this whole thing? I said, well, yeah, usually. Then I bring the seat out and I'm sitting for the whole damn thing.
You're welcome.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of nice to hang out here with this. Okay, so shoulder in. I'm going to draw my horse. And now I'm going to draw the fence. Or the arena wall, or the perimeter, or the quarter line. Well, it wouldn't be the quarter line, but I'm going to draw a line of reference. Okay? When we're riding in a shoulder in. Most of the time, our shoulder in is going to be the same angle as a 10-meter circle, or the same degree of bend as a 10-meter circle. If you could imagine me riding on a 10-meter circle here, it would go off of my whiteboard, obviously, if I had that in relation to the horse here. But as we're going in this shoulder in, remember what we said earlier, we name the lateral movement by the part of the body that deviates from the track. So what does that mean? In the shoulder in then, it means the haunches dictate the track and the shoulders deviate from there. Okay? So we want to think about, what are the legs going to be doing? The inside hind leg is tracking forward and now under the body. Has come in, okay, to the second track. You'll remember the graphic that we were drawing when we were talking about first track, second track, third track, right? The outside shoulder comes inward to line up, essentially, with the inside hind leg. Okay? The outside hind leg is on its own track. It's still heading down the track, just like the inside hind is. Okay? So you've got the outside hind on its own track, the inside hind and the outside shoulder lined up together, and the inside shoulder is on a track of its own. So there's our 3 tracks. Can we go 4 tracks? Can we deviate more? Yes. If we deviate more, let's say we're going real sideways, right? Let's say we're going real sideways here, and all 4 of those legs are on their own track, kind of going forward and sideways on their own track, all 4 legs deviating equally. Isn't that what we called a leg yield earlier? Right? I'm not saying all 4 track is inherently a leg yield, but if we go with enough bend in the body, we've taken that move from a shoulder in and turned it into a leg yield. So we want to be careful about that. Okay? And that's about the degree of forward and sideways reach of the legs. Okay? But so our shoulder in, the shoulders are deviating to the inside. Okay? The inside hind is tracking up with the outside front, okay, or is stepping toward the outside front, thereby stepping deeper under the mass, okay, deeper under the horse's body and under the weight. And the rider should feel that hind leg is pushing you a little bit more. You should feel a little bit more drive in that leg because it's landing and carrying more of the horse's body. The outside hind leg should still stabilize, okay? So we don't want it fishtailing, like what we talked about with the disengaging hindquarters piece. We don't want to feel that hind leg fishtailing out there. We want to feel that it's staying on its track, okay? The purpose of our shoulder in, okay, is to strengthen the horse, specifically the inside hind leg, okay? If you watch a horse go in shoulder in, when this inside hind leg lands under the horse, it lands under the weight, it's carrying more weight in the hock joint specifically, okay? At the loading phase of that step in the shoulder in is where that hind leg is going to get the benefit, okay? Or that's where it's going to feel it the most, essentially. So think about it as we're going to the gym. If it was us, right? We're going to the gym and we're doing pistol squats or something. You're doing a leg press with one leg bearing more weight than the other leg. So you're going to be working that leg more. That makes shoulder in really great for helping to rebalance a horse, for helping to strengthen a weak hind leg, again, specifically toward the hock joint. that really makes it great to work that balance. It also makes it really important that we work our horse in both directions so that we're working for the strength equally on both sides. When we do our shoulder in, we can do it with a little more of a length to the body, which is going to be aiming for suppleness and soft encouragement of the inside hind leg, which I think is always recommended at the beginning when you're first educating your horse for this. This is why I love teaching it in hand, because it's easier to get more of that stretch and that releasing of the top line with the slight stepping under the hind leg. When they begin to develop more strength, and then we come up more into, we'll call it a working frame or a collected frame, that's when they're going to be doing more strength building and less suppling in those moments, okay? You're still going to get some suppleness within that, but it's more going to be focused on strength building. So, thinking again about what are the jobs of the legs, it's all going to be the same. Primary driver and balancer is the inside hind. Balancing leg is the outside front. Inside front is still leading leg. Outside hind is still a stabilizer. Let's think about our aids. Where are your aids going to be? I'll come across in front of you again. First, I want to think about when we're riding anything with our horse. Your shoulders guide their shoulders. Your hips guide their hips. Okay? Where does this horse's hips head? They head straight down the track. So my hips are going to aim to stay straight down the track. Where do their shoulders go? In this case, it's slightly into the right. I'm going to come slightly into the right. Okay? Imagine if you're riding a 10-meter circle. Your body's going to be bent and aligned on the arc of that 10-meter circle. When we're starting our shoulder in, that's that first step of a 10-meter circle. Okay? So a way that I like to ask my horse the first time for that shoulder in, and frequently I ask it this way, is I'll start with a 10-meter circle. And then when I get back to the track, I'll take one more step on that 10-meter circle, and then I keep my hips on the outside track. So I deviate slightly, saying, I'm gonna hang here. I'm gonna stay on the track. I kind of joke about it that I want my horse to think I want a 10-meter circle, but think I'm not really sure of where I want it to happen. Okay, we get that first step, and then we carry it slightly down the track. Now, the first time we ask our horse of this, you might just get into that position and halt and say, yeah, hey, get used to standing, slightly offset. Or then maybe we'll go into one step or two steps, always trying to do just a little less than what they feel confident being able to do. Okay, because if I push him to the edge of his confidence, now I've likely started to create tension or create an argument we could have avoided altogether in the first place. All right? Let's think about what our aids need to do. Your inside leg still stays directly underneath you. Your outside leg still stays slightly back. Because remember, that outside leg needs to help his outside hind leg to stay stable, potentially. I'm not saying you're pushing with that leg, but it would be there in case that outside hind begins to drift. Your inside leg is still saying energize, energize, energize as we can, right? The outside rein, his outside shoulder is still stabilizing. So guess what your outside rein's doing? It's still there to stabilize. Okay, it's not tight, it's not hard, it's there as a stable point of reference. And your inside rein is going to think about being slightly open. Again, I'm not saying open it way wide unless we're really exaggerating in a teaching moment, which you'll see us do. I have Tyler do that in the video for the module of our leg yield and our shoulder in. So you'll see that come in there as a deviation. But when we're thinking about that, we want to make sure that we're not blocking that shoulder. We see a lot of riders that will bring that inside rein into the horse's shoulder. And what does that give us? That gives us flexion without bend, and oftentimes causes that inside shoulder to become heavy. Okay? It also, a lot of times, has a tendency to cause a rider to drop their inside shoulder, okay, kind of toward that inside hand. So we want to think, my hips stay on the track, my shoulders slightly deviate. So again, if you're sitting on your saddle, kind of play that position. This is our shoulder in to the right. Question came up earlier about the shoulder in versus the shoulder fore. Shoulder fore would be with half of that bend. So we would have less deviation with the front and the back. If you're looking at a really good, solid, steady shoulder in coming toward you on the rail, there would be those three, it's kind of wonky for me to show this into the camera, but there'd be those three individual tracks. If you're looking at a shoulder 4 coming toward you, you'll likely see all 4 feet without much length deviation. Okay.
Go along with that really quick. Someone's asking, is there a time when you would use a 4-track shoulder in, or would that just be a leg yield?
There can be times, there can be lots of times to use a 4-track shoulder in. Ask that question again in 1 second. I'm going to finish my thought about the shoulder 4, but you're right on with that. The shoulder 4, so shoulder in we say is based off of a 10-meter circle, right? It's the 10-meter bend. Shoulder 4 is more gradual. It's actually based off of a 20-meter bend. Okay, so we would say it's half of the bend. Shoulder 4 is going to be a great way to help a horse that has a tendency to be off balance naturally, and because it's less of a deviation, it also does mean it's less work for the inside hind leg. So you can ride in it for longer without having to worry about it, basically, which really I think helps to give the horse a better point of reference for where their balance needs to be. There's some horses, I joke, need to live in shoulder 4. If you ride a horse in shoulder in too long or too strong, you can make them pretty darn sore. Shoulder 4, I think you'd be hard pressed to do that, so long as you're working the horse balance to both sides. So let's go back to what that question was again.
So is there a time that you would use a 4-track shoulder in versus a 3-track, or would you just use a leg yield?
Is there a time when you're going to use a 4-track shoulder in versus a 3-track, or does the 4-track just become a leg yield? The 4-track doesn't inherently become a leg yield. The 4-track becomes a leg yield when we get too much angle, that the horse is not stepping up and really balancing more to the haunches. If we get equal forward and sideways of all 4 legs, that's when we tend to get more of the leg yield. If we're on a 4-track, but the haunches are still guiding exactly where we're going, and the shoulders have come in from there, that's what will differentiate the 4-track shoulder in from the leg yield, is the stability of the haunches. Okay. When would be appropriate for me to do that? There might be moments where I might need to ask for that to really help the horse to understand my aids, or to emphasize my request, or in brief moments to say, step much stronger with this hind leg, or something like that. So we would kind of flow in and out of that as necessary. For me personally, I wouldn't want to live in the 4-track for the shoulder in, because as I mentioned earlier, I think as we start to add in the trot work, there's too much, to me, there's too much risk for overextension in there. So we may go there in a moment, but not stay there for very long. Hope that's helpful in that. And so I think we're at the place where we can open up our questions for the shoulder in. I want to also make one point here. When we talk about movement toward the bend or movement away from the bend, the shoulder in would be a movement where we would say the horse is moving away from the bend. He's, in this case, bending to the right, but traveling more to the deviation of left. So he's in the shoulder in, he's moving away from the direction of the bend.
There's just one other question.
Okay.
Is shoulder in just on straight lines, or can I do it on the circle?
Okay. Shoulder in can be on the straight lines and also on the circle. Shoulder in is, we would say, from an organizational perspective, much more challenging on the circle, because we've got to really keep everything together. It's easier for the horse to swing that outside hind leg away from the body when we're traveling on a circle than it is if we're on a straight line, say if we have the arena wall or something like that to help guide. That's going to be more challenging for us to do. I think it's very beneficial for the verification of the rider's aids and the verification of the horse following the rider's seat that we go that shoulder in on our circle right there. Particularly when we're working in hand, we do a lot of the shoulder in is kind of taught on the circle because it helps to kind of set that point of reference for the body there. So we do that in any case. When we're talking about counter shoulder in, I didn't mention it, but I think it's probably simple enough to understand. if my wall were here instead of over here, where did my eraser go? Here we go. I'm in a shoulder in right still, but if my wall is here, it means I'm probably tracking to the left. So when we say counter shoulder in, some riders might refer to it as a shoulder out. The hips are on the second track. The shoulders are deviating to the first track. All the aids are the same. Okay. It just so happens that we're in an opposite direction. There's a lot of times we'll do shoulder in to counter shoulder in on a figure eight. So this goes to that question of our circles, right? And can we do shoulder in on a circle? Shoulder in, counter shoulder in on a figure eight, I think is a really awesome exercise to do with our horse for more than anything else, for verification of our aids. So the horse can really understand that.
A couple more questions.
Perfect.
In shoulder in, your hips are forward down the track, your shoulders are turned into your bend. Where is your intention or focus?
My intention and my focus is going to be on where I'm landing, okay? And that's going to help my hips guide their hips, okay? So I'm going to be in here, thinking there, okay? If that makes sense.
So a shoulder in can be a 4-track, but not a shoulder 4. What is the difference?
The difference is the alignment. So I think this goes back, and please clarify and ask again or ask differently if I'm misunderstanding the question. The shoulder 4 is not considered 4 tracks, but the shoulder in can be considered 4 tracks if there's enough angle to it. The shoulder 4, those 4 feet line up, and they are technically traveling on individual tracks, but those tracks are so close together that there's not enough deviation to call it 4 individual tracks. That sounds really confusing, I know. I'll try to draw this over here. So the 4 tracks, can you see that well enough on there? That might be hard to see. But our 4 tracks of our shoulder 4, it's a limitation of the bend, okay? It's really fairly almost straight with just a slight angle inward, where our, if you can see this graphic over here, our 4-track shoulder in, where the shoulders deviate more, okay? That's why that becomes considered 4 tracks, because they're definitely 4 clear individual tracks, one for each foot. With the shoulder 4, it's just such a slight bend that it's more like you're still on those 2 tracks, and the feet are just a little muddled in their traveling of that. I hope that makes sense. I know that can be a little bit of a tricky one without having the picture of it or the horse right in front of you.
I feel sometimes like my horse is not putting enough energy into lifting the inside front leg when doing shoulder in, and is instead dragging the leg forward. Should we ask for more energy to help with building strength in this leg?
The horse is dragging the inside front leg?
Yes.
In the shoulder in. That would tell me that they're carrying a little bit too much weight there. So I might be thinking about, as a corrective exercise, and this is me not seeing it, so please, if it doesn't work, just understand that I'm just making an idea based on the question and my understanding of it. But I think from there I would be playing with, can we leg yield and then create a shoulder in, okay, to get mobility, to get movement, to get suppleness, and then to get the engagement there. I hope that makes sense.
Please clarify where the rider's hips and shoulders are pointing in the shoulder in.
Perfect. So shoulder in, if I'm riding toward the camera, right, because that can be on the fence or down a center line or wherever. If I'm riding toward the camera, let's see if I can hike up here again. My hips are going to be facing toward my destination, okay? My shoulders are going to be slightly deviated toward the circle that I might be getting my horse ready to ask. I want slight deviation in. I'm not going to do too much, right? but I'm going to do slight deviation to the inside. So this would be my shoulder in to the right. Okay, my shoulders articulate to the right as though I'm asking for a shoulder or for a circle to the right, but my hips stay on the track right there. Okay.
Last one. Do you practice shoulder in at the canter?
Do you practice shoulder in at the canter? I do. Shoulder in at the canter. The deviation at the canter doesn't seem as much, it doesn't feel as much as what it will at the other gaits. The shoulder in I like also as a preparation for the canter transition, because the canter itself is the only naturally bent gait that the horse has. So playing the shoulder in really helps to solidify the balancing diagonal before we ask for that transition. Yes, you can ask for shoulder in the canter. Like I say, it just doesn't feel as dramatic of a shift because the canter is already naturally bent. Perfect. Any other questions with that? No? That's pretty good. All right. I'm going to take a sip of water, guys. So if there's any other questions that are like being typed, that'll give you guys a moment to bring them.